Let's talk about main characters. For fighting games, the character that you spend the most amount of time with is known as your main. It's not uncommon for people to play nothing but one character for the entirety of a fighting game's lifespan. Granted, with balance changes, DLC characters, and the fabled character crisis, players will sometimes jump between different characters. Players have deep connections with their main character, to the point where the most dedicated will spend all of their time talking about how bad their character is and how they need buffs. Wait, this isn't love, this is an excuse for being bad, what the fuck? But how do you find a main character that you will love? How do you find a character that will make you want to slap them all over your peripherals, phone, background, and bedroom wallpaper? I am very normal. What are you talking about? Well, I want to go over the process that I use to figure out which character I want to main in a fighting game. Hopefully you can use this method to find a character for you when you jump to a new game. And if not, well, it's a Gecko Scroll video. There'll be something stupid along the way, right?
But first, a message from our sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. You can choose from over 2,000 different vehicles like tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships to play in dynamic combined arms PvP game modes. Each one of the vehicles has an immaculate amount of detail and are modeled all the way down to their individual components with very detailed damage models. My favorite feature is the X-ray mode that lets you see exactly what happened to your enemy after you shot them. It's really cool. The game also has several different levels of immersion for all types of players. From fast-paced warfare to tactical experience, there really is a game mode for everyone. Interested? Well, use my link in the description and you'll receive a large free bonus pack including multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, several boosters, and much more. So what are you waiting for? Go play War Thunder on PC, Xbox Series X or S, PlayStation 5, and previous gen consoles today. Thank you for the sponsor, War Thunder. Welcome to the most logical video on this channel. In order to figure out which character we're going to mash buttons on Wake Up with, we need to go through some criteria that will help with understanding who you want to play. Before that, we need to get to know you as a person. Hi. How you doing? Did you have chicken dinner earlier? Your breath smells like chicken. Now that I've stared into the depths of your soul, we can begin the process. Let's start by narrowing down the cast a little bit. Fighting games can sometimes have big rosters, like massive rosters, and it can be overwhelming to try and figure out which character you want to play. This is why I always try to narrow it down to a handful of choices that seem to appeal to me. The first thing I do is I find the characters that are outside of my skill range, and I boot them out. This is something that I recommend a lot to newer players. If you are completely new to a game, or just fighting games in general, you're gonna be learning a lot when you're starting out. Because of this, I always tell newbies to pick a character that they like as long as they're simple. Recently, some of my friends picked up Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, and one of them is pretty new to the whole fighting game thing. He got a fight stick, got the game, and went on the character select screen, decided to pick the easy brain-dead character of Narmaya. Now, if I was new, this wouldn't be the choice that I would make personally, mainly because Narmaya is a little funky, especially if you're new to the genre. And just as I expected, it didn't work out. He literally said to me it felt like he was fighting his character more than he was fighting his opponent. It just goes to show that the character that you fall in love with immediately isn't the one that you should necessarily choose first. Don't get me wrong, there is a chance that they will be the character for you one day, probably in a month or two if you stick with the game. But for now, while learning, you should probably pick someone easier. Saying that, you still need to pick a character that you find interesting. I might have made this mistake with Street Fighter 6, as I picked Ken as my first character, since he was really simple and pretty strong. I'm not exactly used to traditional games, so having a standard Shoto there would probably help me out. I stuck with the game for about 100 hours, and I kinda ended up dropping it because I just didn't feel all the hype, if I'm honest. I have no idea if this was because of Ken specifically, but I can't lie and say that I wish I played some other characters near the launch of the game and checked them out. It might have kept me around longer. There's only so many times you can anti-air DP, crouching medium kick, and throw fireballs at grapplers before it becomes a little bit old, if I'm honest. I also want to say that this advice does go both ways. A lot of the time, people generally just tell new players to do all of this, but it's worth saying that if you're used to doing more complex things with complex characters in fighting games, you probably don't want to pick a simple character. The whole point of evaluating your skill level is so that you understand the fundamentals of how the game works. But if you're already well aware of how fighting games work on a fundamental level, or even completely familiar with this franchise, then you'll probably get pretty bored when picking an easy character.
character. Developers definitely make some characters in games with the intent of having them be beginner-friendly characters, so picking them when you're a veteran at these games might not be the best idea. But also, you probably know what you like at this point, so go with whatever feels the most natural. Of course, though, it doesn't matter how much skill it takes to play the character if you don't like the character themselves. The actual character of a character is pretty important in fighting games. This does include their moveset, but right now I'm more talking about their design, what they look like, what they sound like, and all of the little nuances they have can be major factors that should go into picking a character. This is the character that you're going to be looking at for the majority of the time playing the game, so you have to be okay with all of that. If you like May's gameplay but absolutely hate her voice, there's a chance you won't want to play her because you get annoyed every time you go through the wall and hear For some people, the character is the only thing that matters. It is the whole reason to play them. I know players who have started playing entire games because of one character and refuse to switch off of them no matter what happens. And while this is definitely a way to pick a character, it can lead to some people playing characters for, the wrong reasons. I'm not legally allowed to elaborate further on this point, though. Seriously, I'm a Baiken player who used to play Giovanna. I open myself up to being liable. But even if you like the character for the wrong reasons, there's more that you should consider about them. Like I said earlier, how the character plays is just as important, in my opinion. Everyone has their own preferences in fighting games. There'll be some characters they will always prefer playing over others. Even the best players in the world who are able to play seemingly the whole cast have preferences on the type of characters that they like to play. Going into a fighting game knowing what kind of playstyle you want to play is helpful, and it's why we define so many different archetypes for characters, so players are able to get a better idea of how they play before they even touch them. If you're confused on what I mean by archetypes, just go watch this video, it'll catch you up to speed. Unless you're looking for something completely fresh, you probably know the kind of characters that you want to play in any fighting game. I think Ranger looks really cool, because he's basically Dante without the sword. But I'm never going to play him because he's a zoner. And I hate zoners. The balance of character and archetype will vary from person to person. I'm normally more of a gameplay-oriented guy, but I've been known to pick up some characters who aren't exactly the normal archetypes I'd play because I just really like their designs. And I actually ended up really liking them. Finding your balance is something that you'll have to do by yourself and figure out on your own. But don't be afraid to experiment. Sometimes you might just surprise yourself. Finally, I need to do something that I never wanted to do on this channel. Prepare yourself, everyone. I have to talk about tier lists. Well, more specifically, character strength. When picking a character, the actual strength of them is probably something that you should consider. I got news for you. The majority of people playing video games like it when they win, and don't like it when they lose. I know it's a bit of a crazy concept, but because of that, people will specifically look at the characters that will help them win more when compared to the rest of the cast. A lot of the time, fighting game players will find characters that fit their playstyle, fit their aesthetic, make them fall absolutely head over heels, and not play them because they're too strong. When it turns out a character in a fighting game is powerful, a lot of people will decide to just not play them and pick a worse character instead. This decision is entirely driven by pride, and the idea that they want to prove themselves to everyone by picking a low tier when you could just play a better character and still win, you know that, right? My advice is just to pick any character that you like, since most modern fighting games are well balanced enough that anyone can win with any character. But if you're stuck between two characters you want to play and one of them is objectively stronger, just pick the stronger character. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Hopefully, these tips will help you narrow down the characters that you want to play in a fighting game. I know it's hard to find a fighting game character for you, especially when you're starting out. But if you follow these steps, you're surely going to find someone you like. But if you don't, then what do? You pick the first character you thought was cool and you just don't like them? Do you just stay with them and stay miserable? No, why the hell would you do that? Go play someone else. The best advice I can give is go and experiment with the rest of the cast at some point. If you love your character and have no drive to switch off them, then obviously don't do this. But if you're wondering how other characters play, then just go and play them. Try them out. You're not going to die because you just switched off your main for 1 or 2 matches. Maybe you'll like them more, maybe you won't, but you won't know if you don't experiment. Finding your main is a very personal journey, and it's one that we all have to undertake. Hopefully this guide gives you the tools to figure out which character you're going to play in whatever fighting game you choose. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Make sure to go play it in the link in the description. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm streaming on Twitch right now. This is the last viewer matches of the year. I'm taking a little bit of a break because it's the holidays. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next year. As always, a very special thanks to 64 MHz, Almost Nap Time, Antithesis06, Ben from Canada, Cervantes de Leon, Daniel Wiedericht, Fexo, Games.png, I Am Naoto, MP04, Ray W, Sergeant Cubby, Super, Forcon, Tom Tanks, Velvet Puppy, Voltaic Charge, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters.